What's up, y'all? Talent here. Today I'm going to be going over the top teams coming into the Louisville Regional. I was actually preparing to go to this regional myself, but realized last minute that all my air travel was going to be routed through Orlando Airport in Florida, which is going to be hit by the Hurricane Milton this week and into the weekend. So realized probably wasn't going to be able to make it. So I decided to just take the experience, not going to be able to apply it to that tournament myself because rebooking the flights was just going to be way too expensive. So decided to basically make this video showing the top teams I was preparing to play against, and some of them where I was actually planning to use myself. So yeah, hopefully that is a useful resource to anyone going and anyone just trying to get a good grasp on the metagame in general. If you appreciate these videos as a resource, please subscribe to the channel. Helps out a ton. Leave a like on the video and let me know which kind of teams you want to see from me in the future. Just playing on the channel in Battle Stadium or even on Pokemon Showdown. In this prep cycle, I was able to get to, I believe 1700 was my peak. I kind of stopped at that point on the best of 3 ladder, so ended up around top 25. So if you want to see me on the Pokemon Showdown ladder, let me know, or just Battle Stadium as usual. Of course, let me know in the comments below. So with all that being said, let's hop into the teams now. This first is actually not a team at all, but generally just the Dozo cheese of the week that I expect to be popping off at the regionals, just based off of what I was seeing on high ladder. That's generally a good indication of what the Dozo players are cooking up. So basically the idea behind this core is to lead the Sneasler with the Dozo and go for a coaching boost. You could go for Fake Out or another move. I have Toxic Spikes here. I haven't seen that, but it's definitely an option. It's basically kind of a mix between a Coaching Annihilate and a Toxic Spikes, Toxic Debris Glamora. You can kind of go for either Coaching or Toxic Spikes, whichever seems a little bit smarter for that situation. I think Coaching is probably going to fit these sort of teams a little bit better. They're a little more offensive, and the Dozo cheese set of the week is this one. It's Terrasteel Heavy Slam. I've been seeing a lot of this on ladder. Basically, the focus is you have Oblivious to be able to block out an Incineroar's Intimidate or other, basically just Intimidate from Incineroar. You have a Covert Cloak to block a Fake Out from Rillaboom or Incineroar, so people can't go for the really problematic pin of Fake Out with Incineroar or Rillaboom and then Haze with Primarina. That's not going to work here. And then you have Terrasteel Heavy Slam, which will just one-hit KO a Primarina at +2, I believe. And I think at +1, basically if you get a coaching boost on the Dozo and then switch in the Tatsugiri, you should one-hit KO all Amoonguss as well if they don't have a defensive Terra for that. So that's really cool. Basically, you also have Terrasteel, so even if the Amoonguss, you're not able to knock it out, you're still able to do most of the damage to it. With the Heavy Slam, they will be able to put you asleep with Spore, but they can't go for Clear Smog because you have the Terrasteel to be immune to that. So overall, this is a very strong Dozo set. I expect it to be the highest placing Dozo set this weekend. Honestly, the Sneasler can also go for coaching on partners like a Dragonite, Kingambit. We're going to see that on a lot of other combinations, but I could also see it on this Dozo team because it does pair well with the Dozo, and it also enables really strong secondary moves other than Dozo, like a Dragonite or a Kingambit could also be a strong beneficiary of that, as we're going to see in other teams. Zooming on out to some more common teams, I should have PokePaste featuring all of the EV spreads for these teams. I'll have those in the description below if you want to try them on Pokemon Showdown yourself. But yeah, this first team is won by basically Michael Derbesti released this team publicly. This is the team he got top 16, and then someone else got top 8 at the, I think it was Dortmund Regionals, I want to say. But overall, a riff on the Primarina, Sneasler, Dragapult, Kingambit, Rillaboom team that's been doing really well. This is probably the most common balanced team that you're going to see at the upcoming regional cycles, or at least people tryharding it are going to be using this team. The Magmar is definitely really strong in the mirror. You're able to go for Will-O-Wisp on Dragapult. Sneasler, you're able to either Will-O-Wisp or go for Overheat to bring it down to Focus Ash. Rillaboom, similarly, a lot of them were not carrying high horsepower before this tournament, so able to wall that out completely. Something that Electabuzz cannot do. Basically, Electabuzz is just Rillaboom food, but the Magmar matches out very well into it. You have Vital Spirit to be able to be immune to spores from Amoonguss or a Vivillon, so that's really nice. And I do think this is a pretty standard team overall. I think there were some optimizations by Michael, but the main thing is the Magmar, and then actually the high horsepower on the Rillaboom, I think was a very smart choice. It completely flips your matchup against Sneasler, where if you have redirection on the field like Magmar, you can just go for high horsepower into the Sneasler, knock it out next turn with Grassy Glide, so that's really cool. If they're on Burden, basically Psychic Seed set, you'll actually one-hit KO with the high horsepower. I wasn't aware of that. I thought it might be a little bit bulkier, but Rillaboom does just get that one shot as well as being able to threaten Kingambit a little bit more with high horsepower. Same with the Goldengos trying to sit in on Rillaboom. So it makes the Pokemon a lot less passive in board states that against basically U-turn, you just have to switch out and kind of hold that L. But overall, I think the high horsepower is definitely something that we're going to see do really well at the upcoming regional. I think it's probably going to be the most common fourth move on Rillaboom after the Dortmund Regional. Going back out, I'm not going to comment too much on it. This is mostly just EVs taken from Xilang Tang's released team. Justin Tang made top 16 with this team with a Salamence over the Dragapult. Beyond that, same EVs. I've basically just taken the open team sheet from, I believe, Nicolo. He got top 4 at Dortmund. Taken his open sheet like Throat Spray, Primarina, and then just merged the EVs with Xilang's team. But yeah, the main focus here is the Electabuzz with Electroweb as a form of speed control, which the Michael team with the Magmar does not have. So Electroweb works really well with Rillaboom, Primarina, and King Gambit. You can get 1 or 2 Electrowebs off and then suddenly be outspeeding things that you really people aren't counting on, like a Primarina being able to outspeed a Flamigo, a Vivian, a Annihilate, or something like that. And similarly with King Gambit after 2 Electrowebs. So overall, interesting way to play the team. I believe Nicolo had a Taunt, and Xilang and Justin had Helping Hand. Helping Hand's kind of cool because you can go for, against Rain leads, Helping Hand, Terra Dark, Sucker Punch against Basculegion. If they go for Terra Water or not, you'll still get the knockout with the Sucker Punch, which is really cool. So a lot of different variations of this team, just like shifting around move slots a little bit. I've seen Terrago Safety Goggles, King Gambit on High Ladder, as well as coaching on the Sneasler over Fake Out. So lots of things you can do here. Overall, going to be one of the teams to look out for at the regional for sure. Next, we'll talk briefly about Rain. So this is the team that won the Baltimore Regionals. It is pretty standard outside of the Mousehold. I guess the Mousehold is now the standard 6th Pokemon on the team, but basically you have Pelipper Archaludon as your main defensive Rain core. It's also offensive, but Snarl has become kind of the more popular set, so it's really functioning a little bit more defensively. Sometimes you'll see Dragon Pulse on this as well, but on Nicholas Morales' team, he was running Draco Meteor. This is just his team with, I think, my EVs. I wasn't a huge fan of some of the EVs in terms of how the team played, so I made some of my own. The Mousehold is really the star of the show, allowing your Archaludon to go up to +6 on the first turn with a Population Bomb into yourself. You're doing about, I think, 20% of your HP overall, which you can heal up with the Amoonguss later. But if you're playing against a team with physical attackers like Garchomp or Sneasler, getting that Population Bomb off early, you definitely take that 20% for the +6. It also boosts up your body press. You'll suddenly be able to one-hit KO King Gambit even if they have gone for Terra Dark. Beyond that, everything's pretty standard. On most of these Rain comps, you'll see a Basculegion, Amoonguss, and Incineroar. I believe I put Choice Band here, and originally it was a Mystic Water set. I think the Choice Band is being a little bit more popular, but on next team it was, of course, the Mystic Water with Protect over Flip Turn. Overall, definitely a lot of variability in the Basculegion. We have seen Choice Scarf Adaptability was the highest finishing Basculegion at the Dortmund Regional, so a lot of mix-ups you can do here. I think most people are running either Clear Smog or Protect on the Amoonguss with Terra Fairy here. Terra Fairy Amoonguss is definitely going to be the most popular one coming into the regional just because it pairs really well into the Dragapult. Yeah, you don't love getting super effective hit by the Sneasler, but if you can basically redirect an Outrage or a Dragon Darts, it's definitely more appreciated to be immune to the Dragon type move and then take a lot of damage from the Dire Claw because you'll still live it. As long as you don't get put to sleep or paralyzed into full pair the next turn, you're pretty happy with that trade. This next team is basically the 6 was created by Splatty Daddy to get top 16 at Baltimore. I think it got top 8 at Dortmund with FaZe running, or Fezzy running that team. I think FaZe got like top 16 or something close to that. But overall, it's been doing really well. The original team creator was Austin Ramos, basically with an Incineroar over Grimmsnarl winning the first tournament of Regulation H, a large, I think it was Trainer School Tour early on, but yeah, now we have the Grimmsnarl over the original Incineroar. Aside from that, a lot of similarities, but definitely some optimizations over time. We now have a Terrastellar Life Orb Pelipper. Basically, you're able to go for Tailwind, allow the Archaludon to outspeed some stuff it normally wouldn't be able to, but really while your opponent is forced to focus on the oftentimes defensively boosted with screens, potentially a couple beat-ups onto your own Archaludon, you're really drawing a lot of attention away from the Pelipper, which means you can go for a Tailwind to allow your Archaludon to beat the typical counters, or just go for a Stellar Terra Hurricane or Weather Ball, deal insane damage with the Life Orb Stellar Boost. That's honestly wild. It's a really cool innovation. Aside from that, you have the Mousehold Annihilate combo, which similarly works really well with the Grimmsnarl and Sinistra. You're able to go for screens potentially and then a later beat up, or you can just honestly use the Pelipper as a standalone sweeper. I've also used the Archaludon just as defensive control with the Snarl, so overall lots of synergies in this team. I think the top Annihilate team in the metagame right now, kind of interesting that you just merge the archetypes of Rain and Maushold Annihilate, and it ends up functioning probably better than most of the teams that have tried to just do them separately. So overall, really cool team. Sinistcha, one of the only teams in the metagame where it's doing very well right now, but the essential focus is you're trying to go for as many hospitality switch outs and just healing your Archaludon and your Annihilate. 25% goes a long way, especially when you have Light Screen up already, and Reflect and all those boosts on Archaludon and Annihilate defensively and offensively. So the Sinistcha, while it normally isn't super high value to get the 25% HP over something like an Amoonguss that can put things to sleep, in the case of this specific team, it does make it just like way more annoying to get through. Yeah, definitely a team on my radar. Very annoying whenever I play it on ladder, and typically whenever you're annoyed by something on ladder, it probably means there's something of substance there, and yeah, you'd probably want to be prepared for it in tournament. Next team I want to brush on briefly is P2 Ursaluna. Basically, this team really swept the first regional in Baltimore, but it didn't do as well. It's still at a top 4 at Dortmund, I believe. We've seen a bit of a pivot away from the Brave Bird on the Flamigo towards a dual wing beat to be able to one-hit KO things like Vivian. Unfortunately, I believe you do outspeed Vivian by 1 speed stat, which is pretty cool. You just knock it out before it's able to go for a sleep powder into your team, which is very much appreciated. You're also able to go for dual wing beat, one-hit KO Whimsicott, one-hit KO I believe also a Sneasler. That's the really important calc. So this team can be kind of weak to Sneasler. Basically, nothing on your team outspeeds it naturally, so it's free to go for Dire Claws, close combat into Ursaluna. Basically just be a nuisance in general, but the Flamigo being able to clear it out in one hit definitely lets you go into Trick Room and sweep a lot easier with the Ursaluna, so you don't have to target 2 attacks into the Sneasler. But overall, yeah, just a solid matchup patching Mon. I do think this team has a big problem with Safety Goggles Annihilate. I think a lot of people have identified that as a bit of a silver bullet for this team, where although you can beat it, you have to play really, really particularly to do so. Maybe even switch a Terra type on Porygon 2 to Terra Flying to be able to beat it. But in doing that, you lose to a lot of other Pokemon. So I think for this regional, it's going to probably fall off a little bit, I'd imagine, this team. But if someone's able to crack basically another Pokemon over Flamigo that covers the problem matches for the team traditionally while still beating the Safety Goggle setup Annihilate, I do think there is a chance that it could continue to be very good in this format. Now, looking at the next couple of teams, they're mostly centered around Garchomp. That's because I think myself and a lot of people think Garchomp is extremely strong in this format. So this is basically just a very balance-oriented team created by Gabriel Agati. Paul Chua got second place at the first regional with it. Took a lot of, I believe it took some top slots at Dortmund as well. And then got first and second place in the Joinville regional, won by Agati himself. And then I believe Sebastian Escalante. Definitely one of the most successful teams of the format. It centers around Garchomp and Dragonite having really good offensive coverage with the Terra Flying Terra Blast, as well as the Garchomp's Earthquake. Being able to Earthquake next to the Dragonite, definitely appreciated. We've seen some of the Garchomp actually go for Choice Band, and then the Ninetales go for a Choice Spec. So you can kind of mix and match whichever is your preference. I think the Terra Ghost Choice Spec set is definitely a more proactive answer against Sneasler. This set's a little weak to that. I think it was evolved in an environment where you weren't necessarily worried about that as much. Like Sneasler in the early days of the format wasn't as popular as it is now. So going Terra Ghost is definitely a strong counterplay to the non-Throat Chop ones. You can just Terra Ghost away from the weakness to Dire Claw and just be able to answer it pretty well that way. Beyond that, the main focus of this team is basically just to use the Dragonite, Garchomp, Kingambit, and Ninetales. Their strong typing synergy. We have a Fantasy Core, which is just Fairy type, Steel type, and Dragon type. We have 2 of those. We're not quite getting a Fire, Water, Grass core, but we have the Incineroar and Amoonguss to function as your defensive core on the team, and overall you're just trying to outplay your team with a strong positioning game. Next up, we have another Garchomp team, but it's the one that won Dortmund. It's definitely a very different take on it, a lot more offensive with I think this is the first really successful Tailwind dedicated team in this format. It has Whimsicott as your setter, Annihilate's on the team, but no beat up, essentially just focusing for another setup of Sunny Day with Terrifier, Choice Specs, Heat Wave, Hydreigon. That's really strong against a lot of teams. The Sunny Day makes you a lot better against rain teams. It's solid against Ninetales as well if you're able to dodge some blizzards, but you can also show off Aurora Veil, which is of value. You have Encore if people try and go for Fake Out to stall out your Tailwind turns. It's definitely very nice. And then, yeah, basically you go for the Dragonite. You're basically trying to set up Tailwind and then get your Hydreigon and Garchomp in together and just go for strong spread moves, or even you can go for Snarl, Dark Pulse, or Draco if you don't have the Sunny Day set up. Overall, a team that takes really strong advantage of the relative lack of fairy types in the metagame. We have 3 fairy weeks on this team, the Garchomp, Hydreigon, and Annihilape, while having a Metal Coat, Terra Steel, Goldengo to take advantage of the few fairy types that do exist. This is a nasty plot one with the Shadow Ball Make It Rain, just max speed, trying to take advantage of basically the Tailwind, hit as hard and fast as you can, and we have a Clefable to protect it and allow it to go for nasty plots. The Annihilape is also a bulk up set. This Safety Goggles Annihilape was definitely a huge find from the winner of the Dortmund Regionals. The Safety Goggles bulk up set, basically 1v1s with Tear Water, the Porygon 2 Ursa Luna teams. The one thing they would otherwise be able to kind of try and sweep you with is a Make It Rain, but you have Tear Water to resist that. If they ever hit you once, after you've gotten a bulk up, you're just going to knock out the Goldengo anyways. On to the next Garchomp team. If you were not aware, I am very high on Garchomp coming to this regional. I think at this point everyone's realized that it is quite strong, just pairs well into a lot of the Pokemon in the metagame. This team got second place at Dortmund. It does still have the Safety Goggles Annihilape team or issue, so I do think even though with the top performing Porygon 2 team, there's still definitely some edits that have to happen to be able to beat that. This was a really cool coaching Sneasler plus Garchomp. Usually we've seen a lot of fake out on Sneasler, but this is one of the most successful iterations of Sneasler with no fake out, just going coaching, saying that's good enough. You can coach up your Garchomp. Your Porygon 2 can actually benefit if it gets an Eviolite attack boost. After another coaching, you're going to start to do a lot of damage there, as well as appreciating the defensive boost as well. So overall, just another strong Porygon 2 team with Goldengo as a secondary sweeping mode, and the primary sweeping mode being setting up your either Ursa Luna or Garchomp as your ground type sweeper. We have one more coaching team. This one is a Dragonite setup team. I believe this cut Dortmund, I want to say, getting into the top 16, but I'm not entirely sure of that. I took this from a Limitless tour. It might have been a Magmar over the Electabuzz. I'm not sure, but generally the idea here is to coach up your setup King Gambit after you have a +1 defense boost. If you Terra Dark, you're starting to take close combat even pretty well. If you get 2 coachings up, it's like not even a 2 at KO anymore, which is pretty cool, especially with a Rillaboom adding a little bit more healing. But yeah, if you get 2 coachings up, your King Gambit is just so devastating. If you get a Swords Dance up on top of that, it's so hard to beat. And then basically you also have the Dragonite. With multi-scale, you're able to take hits really well, buying you a turn to go for either Fake Out or coaching to set you up. You have Scale Shot with the loading dice to hit 4 to 5 times, so just equivalent to an Outrage. A little stronger than an Outrage if you hit 5, and then a little weaker if you hit 4. Definitely worth the trade. You have Terra Blast Flying as an alternative stab move, so Extreme Speed as the last one in case you are not already faster than everything with Scale Shot or just need to redirect around a Follow Me Pokemon. Beyond that, just rounding out the core pretty standardly with the Citrus Berry Haze Primarina to handle Dozo, Rillaboom to allow you to get the Fake Out off, and then Electabuzz to go for basically just redirection to allow you to set up with King Gambit if you don't like the coaching route. Moving into the last team, I'm not sure this team's going to do very well, but it's definitely something to be on people's radar. Delphox plus Indeedee Male has been popping up a fair bit with Terra Blast, fighting on most of the Indeedees to be able to handle Incineroar pretty well. Some of the Delphox are also Terra fighting Terra Blast. I have seen some Terra Psychic as well, but generally this is just a very offensive team. You want to get the Murkrow's Tailwind up early, potentially lead the Indeedee to get the terrain up right away, and then go into the Delphox immediately after one of those feints and try and sweep from there. You have some alternative modes on the team. You have the Dragapult as a strong sweeper as well. Maushold is just a menace when it has the speed control active, and you don't really want to bring Incineroar against the Dragapult, Indeedee, or Delphox with both of the Terra fightings here, because so basically you want to intimidate the Maushold, but like at the same time, if you bring it against these Pokemon, you're kind of at a disadvantage anyways. You can also just haze away the Maushold drops and 1 at KO the Incineroar with a Wide Lens Population Bomb. I imagine that you need Terra Normal to knock out if you're intimidated, but you wouldn't if you are at neutral. And then the last mon is the Sneasler with the Unburdened Psychic Seed. You actually get pretty bulky. Some things like a Make It Rain from Goldengo will no longer be threatening a knockout unless they are already boosted up. So you can also just answer them with a Terra Dark Throat Chop to force them to either go for a Terra into their Steel type usually, so you can just hit them with a close combat if they get that read wrong. So lots of strength in this set, just very good. Basically the Delphox and Indeedee can force out Terras early, as well as with the Dragapult and the Maushold, and then just basically chip everything in range for the Unburdened Sneasler, outspeeding everything after Tailwind ends, and just sweeping from there. Alright, that's going to do it for my breakdown of these teams. I think if I were going to the regional myself, I was probably going to use something closest to the Population Bomb Rain team, except a Goldengo with Life Orb, Nasty Plot, Terra Steel over the Maushold. I was doing pretty well on ladder with that. I was enjoying that a fair bit, but I also might have tried to get as many reps in and just use the Ninetales Chomp team. It has gotten out of the 3 regionals it's been in finals. It's basically occupied one half of the final slot, so pretty good track record. I think this is probably one of the teams to beat, as well as the King Gambit balanced teams. I think this Rain team is probably going to pop up a lot more frequently than it did in previous regulations. A bit of a fall off for P2 Ursaluna, and then maybe some more innovative coaching stuff this weekend as well. So got to be on the watch out, of course, for the Don Dozo cheese of the week, as I mentioned. But yeah, beyond that, I hope you guys enjoyed this breakdown. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe, leave a like on the video, and let me know if there's any teams that you think I should have included but did not make the cut. Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to use any of the teams that I did include, I have the EV spreads in the description below. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and yeah, with all that being said, peace y'all.